Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation in Somalia. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of Ethiopia and Somalia to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin consideration of item 2 of the agenda. Members of the Council have before them document S/2024/961, the text of a draft resolution submitted by the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The Council is ready to proceed to a vote on the draft resolution. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make statements before the vote. I give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. The African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, ATMIS, has played an irreplaceable role in Somalia's security and stabilisation. In service of that mission, many of its personnel and those of its predecessor, AUSSOM, also paid the highest price. I would like to pay tribute today to their bravery and their sacrifice. The resolution tabled for adoption today mandates the successor mission to ATMIS, the African Union Support and Stabilisation Mission in Somalia, AUSSOM, which will build on ATMIS's achievements to strengthen stability and security in Somalia. It is the culmination of a complex negotiation, and we thank all members of the Council for their collaborative and consultative approach. Throughout negotiations, the Council has remained united in its collective determination to continue supporting Somalia in its fight against al-Shabaab and its efforts to achieve lasting and durable peace and security. This resolution robustly reinforces the Council's support to Somalia. It authorises AUSSOM to support Somalia in its fight against al-Shabaab, strengthen Somalia's stabilisation efforts, and enable the delivery of humanitarian assistance. And it prepares the ground for the Council to approve a transformative change to the mission's financing in May 2025. With the first anticipated use of the framework established by Resolution 2719. We look forward to continued Council engagement on Somalia into the new year, with renewal of the al-Shabaab sanctions regime in February, the first round of reporting on UNTMIS and AUSSOM due in March, and a strategic review of UNSOS due by 1st of April. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom for their statement. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2024/961 please raise their hand? Those against? Abstentions? The result of the voting is as follows: 14 votes in favor, 0 votes against, 1 abstention. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2767 of 2024. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make statements after the vote. I give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the A3+, namely Guyana, Mozambique, Sierra Leone, and my own country, Algeria. At the outset, we wish to thank the penholder, the United Kingdom, for its extensive efforts to reach a compromise on this important draft. We welcome the presence of the permanent representatives of Somalia and Ethiopia to this meeting. Today's resolution marks an important milestone in Somalia's pathway in consolidating state building and stability. We are confident that the deployment of the African Union Support and Stabilization Mission, AUSSOM, will be a clear added value in the security landscape and a crucial support for the efforts deployed by the federal government of Somalia. Madam President, as expected, the issue around financing of this mission has been at the heart of the negotiations. The A3+, guided by the African Union, have expressed their support to the hybrid option for the implementation of the Framework Resolution 2719 as the only viable and applicable option for the case of AUSSOM during the phases of the mission. We defended the path while insisting on the imperative to ensure predictability, sustainability, and flexibility. I repeat, predictability, sustainability, and flexibility of resources to be mobilized from the international community. The AU member states contributing already and naturally to the UN budget have accepted to consider a token financial contribution to the new mission in Somalia. This contribution is closely considered despite the financial challenges the continent is facing. The strong commitment demonstrated by the African Union on this file illustrates concretely the ability of the continental organization to craft African solutions for African problems. However, let's be clear. The financial contribution cannot go beyond the financial capabilities of the African Union. Madam President, AUSSOM represents the first test case for the international community and its willingness to support the African Union in addressing its security challenges. Therefore, we have shown a significant sense of compromise during the negotiations so that we could reach an acceptable and fair outcome for all of us. This constructive spirit of compromise was motivated by the need to take into account different dynamics within and outside this Council. Also, the imperative to preserve and build on the hard-won security gains, as well as the commendable progress realized by the federal government of Somalia, have been guiding our common position. Therefore, our support for the text, for this text, emanates from our deep belief that all ways must be explored to support Somalia's efforts in the fight against terrorism, in accordance with Somalia's priorities and aspirations. We supported this text while bearing in mind that we cannot afford a failure of this process that could jeopardize years of heavy sacrifice deployed by the troop contributing countries and their brave men and women on the ground. We seize this opportunity to pay tribute to the African Union and the TCCs for their Pan-African support to Somalia during the last 18 years on behalf of the international community, on behalf of this Security Council. Let's ensure together that this journey will keep moving forward and bear fruit for the people of Somalia. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Algeria for their statement, and I now give the floor to the Republic of Korea.
Madam President, I thank UK for its critical role as a panelist, and I welcome the representatives of Ethiopia and Somalia. Republic of Korea voted in favor of the resolution authorizing AUSSOM to support the regional and international efforts in bringing peace and stability to Somalia. We trust the newly authorized mission will continue to build upon the hard-won gains made by its predecessors, AUSSOM and ATMIS, and prevent security gaps that could enable opportunistic terrorist expansion. Upholding obligation under the international law and ensuring full compliance with the standards of conduct and the UN human rights due diligence policy will be crucial in implementing its mandate. Adequate, predictable, and sustainable funding is critical to achieving these goals. We will welcome that this resolution has paved the way for the hybrid implementation of the framework established by the Resolution 2719, which the Secretary General and the AU Commission Chairperson strongly recommended. This exceptional funding model is expected to effectively address the chronic funding challenges faced by the predecessors' missions. We strongly urge the Secretary General to expedite the preparations for this framework, enabling the Council to confirm its decision in May following his report. The independent strategic review of UNSCOS will also be crucial in supporting the potential implementation of this funding model. Throughout this process, compliance, financial oversight, accountability must remain paramount. Madam President, as a long-standing donor to Somalia since 1993, the Republic of Korea contributed to UN peacekeepers and provided both financial and in-kind contribution to AUSSOM and ATMIS. In addition, we have also contributed a total of the $12.5 million bilaterally to African Union this year, and we are the 9th largest assessed contributor to the UN peacekeeping budget. We remain committed to extending our support to AUSSOM next year as well. Moreover, we have actively and wholeheartedly engaged these negotiations as a bridge builder and will continue to do so throughout our membership in the Council. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Republic of Korea for their remarks, and I now give the floor to the representative of Malta.
Thank you, Madam President. Many thanks to the United Kingdom for their extensive efforts as penholder on this process. The resolution we have just adopted authorizes the new African Union mission in Somalia, AUSSOM, for an initial period of 12 months, alongside a reconfigured support office, UNSOS. We welcome this endeavour as it will further secure Somalia's long-term security goals, including the fight against al-Shabaab. Additionally, we welcome preparations made to this end, such as the CONOPS and the joint report. These have helped narrow down the key tasks, scope, and available financing options for AUSSOM. Malta supports the hybrid implementation of the framework established by Resolution 2719 as outlined in the joint report. This will enable AUSSOM to operate under a credible financial framework. As mandated by this resolution, we look forward to the next Secretary-General's report to detail progress on Resolution 2719 under the hybrid implementation, as well as the independent strategic review of UNSOS. President, the European Union has been a long-standing partner in shaping Somalia's security architecture. Since the deployment of AMISOM in 2007 and subsequently ATMIS, the European Union has provided over 26 billion euros in support of their military, police and civilian components. Additionally, the European Union has provided 5 packages of support to the Somali National Army, totaling another 110 million euros since 2019. We will remain committed to contributing to AUSSOM while continuing our assistance to Somalia's security needs. Support to Somalia also requires the support of a diversified donor base, in line with the principle of burden sharing. Let us continue to work collectively towards this next phase. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Malta for their remarks, and I now give the floor to the representative of France.
Madam President, France thanks the United Kingdom for its crucial role in preparing this text. We welcome the adoption of this resolution, which sets out for the creation of the African Union Support and Stabilisation Mission in Somalia, AUSSOM. This mission is a new stage in our support for the efforts of Somalia to fight the al-Shabaab group and to assure its own stability on its own. Somalia can count on France's support in this essential goal. This resolution is an important stage in preparing for the first implementation of the African Union Peace Mission along the lines of 2719. We have always been fully committed to this model, and we welcome the fact that the Security Council has managed to establish a hybrid, unprecedented framework for cooperation between the UN and the African Union. This bears out the ability of the Security Council to tailor its tools in coordination with relevant regional bodies. France wishes to recall that AUSSOM must continue to count on the voluntary contributions of our partners. It's important for the European Union, which has committed more than 2.6 billion euros to AU missions in Somalia. It's fully involved in the new mission. We hope that the European Union will remain committed in line with its capacities and alongside the rest of the international community. Only a joint coordinated response from all of Somalia's partners will allow us to curb the terrorist threat. There is no traditional or non-traditional partner, only Somalia's partners, some partners in its security and sovereignty in the 21st century. On this subject, as on all agenda items, France welcomes the fact that we are able to will be able to involve Somalia within this council from next week. Thank you.
The representative of France for their remarks, and I now give the floor to the representative of Slovenia.
Thank you, Madam President. Slovenia voted in favor of the draft resolution on establishment of African Union Support and Stabilisation Mission in Somalia, or AUSSOM. We thank the UK for its tireless efforts in trying to find a compromise that would deliver a strong mandate to this new mission. We note strong support of this Council for the new mission in Somalia. All necessary steps described in the resolution adopted today must be implemented in due time, so that the mission could begin receiving predictable, sustainable, and adequate funding by 1st July 2025.
Any delay beyond this date would endanger the effectiveness of the mission and have serious repercussions for security and stability of Somalia and the region. Furthermore, international community needs to come together to achieve fair burden sharing and mobilize necessary financial resources, including towards the voluntary portion of AUSSOM's budget. Only if these criteria are met will the mission be able to implement its mandate from the first day of its deployment. European Union, of which Slovenia is a member, will, in line with its long-standing commitment to Somalia, continue to provide financial, in-kind and logistical support to AUSSOM. Madam President, let me finish by paying respect to all members of AMISOM and ATMIS. Their sacrifice in supporting peace, security and stability of Somalia will never be forgotten. We commend the Somali people for their resilience and progress. It is our sincere hope that successful collaboration between Somalia, the United Nations, and the African Union will result in AUSSOM becoming the last mission ever to be mandated by this Council to Somalia. We wish the new mission all the best in implementing its important duties. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Slovenia for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Switzerland.
Merci, Madame la
Thank you, President. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the United Kingdom as penholder for all the efforts undertaken during these negotiations. I'd also like to thank the other Council members for their commitment. I would also like to welcome the representatives of Somalia and Ethiopia. Switzerland voted in favour of this resolution and welcomes its adoption. The authorisation of AUSSOM is essential to consolidate the progress made in Somalia. The resolution that has just been adopted clearly underlines the protection of civilians as a priority of AUSSOM's mandate. In this respect, we insist on the full respect of international humanitarian law and human rights by all parties. The resolution also emphasises compliance with standards of conduct, discipline and accountability. These are the basic principles that we have defended on many occasions within this Council, including during these negotiations. We also welcome the fact that the resolution sets out a clear path towards predictable and sustainable funding for AUSSOM through a hybrid implementation of Resolution 2719. It is crucial that the necessary preparations be undertaken by the UN and the African Union as soon as possible to enable the Council to confirm this implementation as of the 1st of July 2025. President, we hope that the transition from ATMIS to AUSSOM will contribute to a lasting and inclusive peace in Somalia and enable it to ensure its own security. In this sense, I wish to pay tribute to all members of ATMIS who have been working over all these many years. In this sense, I reaffirm also our full support to Somalia and its people. We will remain committed to working with them beyond our mandate in the Council to build lasting peace and a prosperous future. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Switzerland for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of China.
President, the Council has just adopted Resolution 2767 authorizing the transition from ATMIS to AUSSOM to continue to carry out the important tasks of combating terrorism and protecting civilians in Somalia. This has demonstrated the Council's determination to support the achievement of lasting peace in Somalia. China voted in favor of this resolution. I would like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to the United Kingdom for its efforts as penholder. In recent years, with the support of international partners, Somalia has made significant progress in its fight against terrorism. But the security situation remains complex and grave. The establishment of AUSSOM marks the beginning of a new phase in the peacekeeping efforts of the AU in Somalia. China supports the plan formulated by the AU and the Somali government on the transition of the new mission and hopes that all parties will continue to work together in the next phase to ensure proper handover of the work of the two missions, avoid a security vacuum, and consolidate the hard-won achievements in the fight against terrorism. President, Council Resolution 2719 is an important framework arrangement for supporting African-owned peacekeeping operations, and China has always supported its early implementation. China welcomes the resolution just adopted, which authorized the funding for AUSSOM in accordance with Council Resolution 2719 from July next year. This is an important step forward in the Council's support for AU-led peacekeeping operations. China encourages the UN and the AU to speed up preparations for the implementation of the framework of Resolution 2719 to ensure that it is successfully applied to AUSSOM in July next year and to guarantee the predictability and sustainability of the mission's funding. At the same time, it should be noted that at all stages of its operations, AUSSOM is still facing a huge funding gap, which may constrain the effectiveness of the mission in carrying out its functions. China calls on traditional donors to continue to fulfill their responsibilities in providing adequate financial support to the mission. China stands ready to contribute to the security and stabilisation of Somalia. I thank you.
I thank the representative of China for their remarks. I now give the floor to the representative of Japan.
Thank you, Madam President. I welcome the presence of representatives of Somalia and Ethiopia. Japan thanks the United Kingdom as the penholder for its constructive engagements and tireless efforts during the negotiations. Japan welcomes the adoption of Resolution 2767, authorizing AUSSOM at the critical moment for Somalia's security transition. Let me take this opportunity to pay tribute to all the personnel of ATMIS and the Somali security forces for their sacrifice. We believe AUSSOM will play a vital role in supporting Somalia's goal to assume greater security responsibility and to promote peace and reconciliation efforts in close cooperation and coordination with ANSOS and ATMIS. We also welcome the declaration recently signed between Somalia and Ethiopia. Continued regional cooperation is critical, particularly in the fight against Al-Shabaab. Japan further appreciates the incorporation into this resolution of the potential future implementation of the framework established.
那你觉得，难民署在应该如何应对叙利亚和周？
supports and promotes African ownership. Japan, on its part, recently decided to contribute $3 million to the police component of AUSSOM's operations. We welcome the Council's call on the Secretary General, jointly with AU Commission Chairperson, to accelerate preparations toward implementing the framework of Resolution 2719 to AUSSOM, and to report on progress in this regard to the Council. Firmly establishing UN-AU coordinated oversight and accountability, and strict observance of the human rights due diligence policy, as well as the conduct of and discipline compliance framework, are essential not only for AUSSOM, but the future application of the framework. Madam President, as Japan leaves the Council next week, we reiterate our commitment to continue supporting Somalia's endeavor towards sustainable peace and stability, both for the country and the region. I thank you.
Thank the representative of Japan for their statement. And I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Madam President, the Russian Federation supported the UN Security Council draft resolution prepared by the British penholders on the creation of the African Union Support and Stabilisation Mission in Somalia. At the start, I'd like to thank the leadership and peacekeepers of the AU Transition Mission in Somalia for their service and pay tribute to those who laid down their lives to work towards a stabilisation situation in Somalia. Russia voted in favour of this resolution inasmuch as we are convinced that the presence of African Union peacekeepers in Somalia is still necessary. They have the necessary experience in fighting al-Shabaab and the commitment to international standards on human rights and IHL when carrying out their operations. We also believe that an African-wide system for command and control has shown itself to be effective too. We believe it important to not let up efforts to stabilise the political situation in Somalia. The federal government and the federal states should continue to overcome their differences and forge a common path to strengthen territorial integrity and the unity of their own country, despite the difficulties of the electoral period. The international community should support these efforts. The federal government should also focus its attention as a priority on questions of increasing the effectiveness of law enforcement so that once AUSSOM concludes its work, they can independently ensure the protection of civilians and infrastructure across their entire country. We are convinced that the upcoming 2-year period for Mogadishu's on board at the Security Council will give further impetus to UN Security Council efforts to tackle threats to international peace and security posed by al-Shabaab. The draft resolution negotiated at the Council on AUSSOM is unique in terms of its potential to implement Security Council Resolution 2719 on co-financing of African peace operations through the UN budget. We trust that today's resolution will allow us to increase the predictability, reliability and flexibility for the financing of efforts to maintain peace and security in Somalia, with a leading role played by the African Union. We believe that the Security Council has made an important step, demonstrating its trust in the leadership of the region in resolving crises in Africa, and also its readiness to increase cooperation between the UN and the AU in the interests of international peace and security. We note in particular the strong and consolidated position of the AU in advocating for, in line with the recommendations of the UN Secretary General Antonio and the chairperson of the AU, of the most appropriate hybrid model of financing of AUSSOM, and one that is also in line with the decisions of the AU PSC. At the same time, we can't not note that for months we had to observe a fight between those who did not want to further fund African peacekeepers in Somalia and those who did not want to take on new financial obligations, even through a mechanism of AU-UN partnership. Against this backdrop, statements about their support to Africans and their aspirations look hypocritical. At a time when an issue that we couldn't agree on for so long runs to around $150 million in costs, Western funding for Ukraine since February 2022 to start of this year has reached, according to assessments, $238.5 billion. The big donors to Ukraine over these 3 years were the US, with $95.2 billion, and the UK provided $13.4 billion. The EU and its member states transferred $94.2 billion to Ukraine. From them, 6.1 billion euros were allocated to the so-called EU Peace Facility, which is reformed from the EU African Peace Facility. This figure reached more than 11 billion. It's clear that Africa has for long not been the priority of the EU, and this should be something that our African colleagues should bear in mind in the future. And the African Union as a whole. An important first step has been taken towards ensuring reliability and predictability of financing for African work on maintaining international peace. Maintaining peace and security. On our side, Russia will continue to support these efforts next year, when the question of AUSSOM will once again be on the Security Council agenda. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for their statement. I give the floor to the representative of Ecuador.
Gracias.
Thank you, Madam President. I welcome the presence here of the representatives of Ethiopia and Somalia. My delegation recognises the valuable diplomatic work of the United Kingdom, which, as the penholder, has led this Council to adopting Resolution 2767, which may come to represent a key tool in the path towards peace-building, security and stability in Somalia. Ecuador has followed with compassion even before taking up our seat as elected member on the Security Council for the 2023 to 2024 biennium, the legitimate and long-standing aspiration of the African Union regarding the need to enhance the predictability, sustainability of financing for African Union-led peace support operations authorized by the Security Council and under the Security Council's authority consistent with Chapter 8 of the UN Charter, as cited in the resolution that has just been adopted. This is the main reason for our vote in favour of the draft put before this Council, and also the reason for our support for the members to enable the adoption of Resolution 2719 during the Ecuadorian presidency of the Security Council in December last year. The United Nations Secretariat and the African Union Commission now have the serious responsibility to speed up the necessary preparations for the Council to authorize the rollout of the hybrid implementation plan of Resolution 2719. Madam President, as we come to the end of our term on the Security Council, reaffirms its unwavering support for the Somalian people. We express our hope for AUSSOM under the principle of national ownership and with full respect for national sovereignty to contribute to laying the foundations for a lasting peace and a stable development-led future for Somalia. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Ecuador for their statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of the United States. At the outset, the United States thanks all the troop and police contributing countries for their service and sacrifice to ATMIS and AMISOM, and we pay tribute to those who lost their lives in support of those missions. The fight against al-Shabaab and other terrorist elements in Somalia underscores the serious nature of our task here today. And in this context, I welcome the participation of the representatives of Somalia and Ethiopia. Our decision to abstain on this resolution is not one we took lightly. Despite our serious concerns, I want to underscore that the United States remains committed to supporting and strengthening African Union peace support operations. Our commitment to Somalia extends over decades. The United States provides bilateral assistance to increase security, promote economic growth, and advance peace and stability, totaling over $1.2 billion each year. As the largest financial contributor to UN peacekeeping globally, the United States has paid, since the inception of AU peace support operations in Somalia with AMISOM, 1/4 of the annual budget of the UN Support and Stabilization Office in Somalia, providing critical, life-saving logistical support to AU troops and Somali security forces. The United States is also proud to have supported the passolution of Resolution 2719 last December, which broke new ground in providing a framework for this Council to authorize the use of UN-assessed contributions to support AU peace and support operations. The United States has long been a supporter and partner of the African Union and knows the valuable expertise the institution brings to managing conflicts on the continent. We supported Resolution 2719 not simply as a source of funding, but as a means of strengthening the partnership between the African Union and the United Nations. U.S. support for 2719 came about because we listened to and responded to a long-standing position of our African partners. But in our view, the conditions have not been met for immediate transition to application of 2719 in Somalia. Excuse me. Further, when the Security Council passed Resolution 2719, member states agreed that the UN-assessed contributions would fund no more than 75% of AU PSO annual budgets, with the remainder to be mobilized from the international community jointly by the AU and the UN. It is clear the Council intended for 2719 to apply to logistical support and personnel under a, quote, one mission, one budget, close quote, model. The resolution states that the UN-assessed contributions will not exceed 75% of a mission's annual budget, and cited logistical support as included in that, in addition to personnel costs. Despite this, the proposed hybrid model in today's text implies that the UN would continue to fully fund UNSOS through UN-assessed contributions, and that 2719 would apply solely to troop reimbursements. This arrangement would result in UN-assessed contributions effectively funding more than 90% of the aggregate mission cost. This is clearly not what Resolution 2719 envisioned. As we said at the time of 2719's adoption, and have demonstrated since through our actions and diplomatic efforts, the United States stands ready to work with Security Council members and the African Union to determine how the remainder of the budget would be financed. We cannot, however, vote in favor of a resolution that uses this new model without referencing the intent to transition to a consolidated budget, as was the case in Resolution 2719, and in keeping with the standard and best practices in peacekeeping. And for the record, we would not support a subvention or any other mechanism as another workaround to the intent of a resolution adopted by this Council in order to access additional assessed contributions. In our view, such an approach, however expedient in the short term, would run the risk of undermining the credibility of this new model over the long term. Colleagues, the United States will remain a steadfast proponent of the African Union's peace support operations and our partner, Somalia. We will do all in our power to support and strengthen Resolution 2719 as agreed by the Council as a tool, including by assessing the AU and UN's progress against benchmarks outlined in the AU-UN Joint Roadmap. We will support both institutions as they work to set up this tool for success, and most importantly, support Somalia in its effort to combat threats to its security and stability. Thank you. I resume my functions now as President of the Council, and I will now give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
Madam President, since it's the first time my delegation is taking the floor this month, I would like to congratulate you, Madam, on the excellent manner you are conducting the work of the Council this month. We welcome the adoption of Resolution 2767, which marks a significant step toward sustained peace and stability in my country. I take this opportunity to extend my appreciation to the penholder, the United Kingdom, and all Council members for their constructive engagement on this important resolution. We acknowledge the Council's intention to operationalize the historic Resolution 2719 through the current adoption of the African Union-led mission in Somalia, AUSSOM, for 1 year. We look forward to the SG's strategic review in May and welcome the Council's call to implement the AU-UN recommended hybrid model in July 2025. This approach recognizes the unique operational context and reinforces the logistical support provided by the United Nations, which has been instrumental in the success of peace support operations. Additionally, access to the UN-assessed contribution of up to 75% can provide adequate, predictable, and sustainable funding to AUSSOM, and significantly enhances the capacity to confront security challenges posed by Al-Shabaab. As we proceed with our technical and political engagements during this preparatory phase 1 of AUSSOM for reorientation and realignment, we urge donors to continue to contribute to support the Somali security forces, as well as the funding gaps of AUSSOM in phase 1. Such support will preserve the hard-earned gains and enable the effective implementation of the mandate from the outset of phase 1 and lay the groundwork for the new mission by June. In conclusion, Madam President, I express my sincere appreciation for the collaborative spirit that has brought us to this moment and look forward to ensuring that the promises made today translates into tangible benefits for the people of Somalia. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Somalia for their statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Ethiopia.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I congratulate you on your presidency of the Council for the month of December. I wish to commend the pen holder, the United Kingdom, for the great effort in facilitating the negotiation over the resolution that authorizes the transition from ATMIS to AUSSOM. Madam President, terrorism is a rising global peace and security threat. Al-Shabaab is continuously enhancing its organizational and operational capability to inflict more damage on civilians and execute its aspiration of forming a regional caliphate. It's also joining forces with ISIS and other terrorist groups in order to create a global terrorist network spanning the continent of Africa and the Red Sea. Al-Shabaab has been expanding its recruitment reach and pushing for more territorial control. Its increasing tendency to collaborate with other global terrorist networks is a worrisome development. This is all the more concerning because terrorist groups such as ISIS are gaining a foothold in Somalia. This group appears to have a clear role to create maritime insecurity, including piracy on the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. Al-Shabaab has also enhanced its ability to mobilize resources and finance from within and outside Somalia. It also acquires advanced weaponry and equipment. Madam President, the transition from ATMIS to AUSSOM takes place amidst these uncertainties. We share the high expectation from AUSSOM to positively contribute to Somalia's long-term stability while preserving the security gains made thus far. However, the transition will be successful only if Somalia's security forces are enabled to assume their full responsibility. National consensus within Somalia and unified regional front against terrorism are indispensable elements. Without such political and operational readiness, consolidating the security gains will be difficult to attain. We therefore concur with the Council's cautious approach that any further transition should be informed by a progressive improvement in the capability of the Somali security forces to take full responsibility. Madam President, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of the continued engagement of the international community. We are at a delicate stage marking yet another transition since the formation of the sub-regional mission AUSSOM almost 2 decades ago. The international community has invested massively in this journey. The task, however, is yet to be completed. The concerted efforts of the neighboring countries and partners should not wane at this phase. Ethiopia, along with the other frontline states, has been at the forefront of supporting Somalia to rebuild its state institutions and assume its responsibility in the community of nations. Thanks to the ultimate sacrifices paid by Ethiopia's finest sons and daughters, alongside the sisterly troop contributing countries, we have seen encouraging progress over the years. We look forward to working closely with the federal government of Somalia that we trust will continue to be a committed partner in counterterrorism efforts. Ethiopia stands ready to continue its role in the post-ATMIS mission. Finally, Madam President, countering terrorism and stabilizing Somalia is informed by a shared regional policy of interdependence that aims at ensuring collective peace and prosperity in the region. Therefore, extra-regional actors that have no constructive role in the region and in fighting terrorism in Somalia should be advised to abandon their reckless pursuit. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Ethiopia for their statement. There are no more names. Oh, the representative of Somalia has asked for the floor to make a further statement.
Thank you, Madam President, for giving me the floor again. As you are aware, due to document actions of Ethiopia in Somalia for the past 11 months, the federal government of Somalia has undertaken comprehensive review of its security arrangements as we transition from ATMIS to the new mission, AUSSOM. In that period, our regional partners from 3 contributing countries have shown remarkable solidarity, pledging to maintain our necessary force of 11,000 troops of AUSSOM. This commitment addresses any security vacuum created by Ethiopia while sustaining progress in the fight against Al-Shabaab in the country. In that vein, we emphasize that the current AUSSOM troop allocations are completed through bilateral agreements which have been in place in November. As Somalia moves forward, we will continue to engage in future security partnerships that serve our national and shared regional interests. I thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Somalia for their further statement. At this point, there are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.